Retro.
Hello, testing. Hello, WonderCon! Hi! Glad to see all, what do we got, like 20 people out here? I can't see in their lights. My name is Joey. I am one of the hosts of a podcast called the Animanicast. And it's actually a podcast I started about 7 years ago with just the sole thing of just, I loved the show growing up. And I wanted to rewatch it with my brother and one of my friends. And wouldn't you know it, through that podcast, I got to meet the amazing people that we're going to be talking about today for the celebration of Animaniacs' 30th anniversary. Let's go ahead and introduce these lovely folks right now. And let's go ahead and start with the creator of Animaniacs himself. It's Mr. Tom Ruegger. Right here, Tom. And our next panelist has written some of my favorite Warner segments on Animaniacs, such as Meatballs or Consequences, Dracula, but he's also responsible for writing some of the funniest Slappy Squirrel segments, such as Woodstock Slappy. And he's also the author of some really funny and insightful books, such as They Took My Prostate and How to Run a Marathon in 13 Years. It's Mr. John P. McCann. Coming up next is one of the funniest men I've had the pleasure to meet. He wrote more Warner segments than any other writer on Animaniacs, including the premiere segment Desanitized that introduced us to the Warners, as well as other classics. So let's go and bring on Mr. Paul Rugg. And now to two incredibly talented musicians who helped bring the show to life through their amazing musical compositions. These two not only worked on the original series of Animaniacs, but also Pinky and the Brain, Hysteria, Freakazoid. They recently composed music for The Boys, Diabolical, in the short Laser Babies Day Out. And they just finished composing music for the Animaniacs reboot. It's Mr. Steve Bernstein and his wife, Julie Bernstein. Let's bring out Steve and Julie Bernstein. Yay! All right. Fantastic. Thank you guys so much for being here today. And I'll tell you what, folks, I think we should start things off, if things go as planned, with singing the Animaniacs theme song. So everyone stand up here. Let's see if we can all sing this, and hopefully I got the volume. And if we don't have volume, we'll sing it a cappella. Are we all ready? To come heck or high water? Here we go. We all know the words, but in case you don't know, it'll be up on the screen. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, let's kick it off to Tom. Tom, tell us, how did this show get started?
I have no idea what we were doing. The song, by the way, composed by Richard Stone, the great Stonini, we called him. And I was lucky enough to write the lyrics, but Richard was our composer, along with Julie and Steve in those good old days. These are some pencil tests you're seeing right now. And but 33 years ago, we started developing this thing. And one Saturday morning, my boss, Gene McCurdy, and I and Sherry Stoner went over to the home of, who's that guy that was the big guy?
George Lucas.
George Lucas. And George was, the other guy.
It was Stephen.
Okay. And he had literally had milk and cookies set out for us. It was a Saturday morning, and his wife and kids came in with just a whole bunch of kids. And so we were pitching segments for this show. And there was, we pitched Rita and Runt, and Stephen said, I like them. And we pitched Slappy Squirrel, I like them. We pitched the Warners, who were ultimately were changed from ducks to like rubber hose cartoon characterists, and he liked them. He saw Mindy and Buttons, he said, no. But then the kids came trundling in, and one of his youngest kids walked up to a stand-up of Mindy we had, and I like her. And Stephen said, Mindy and Buttons are back in. So I pitched, there's Pinky. I pitched Pinky and the Brain in this manner. I sang their theme song, but not the melody that you know. I sang this. I said, they're Pinky and the Brain. Yes, Pinky and the Brain. One is a genius, the other's insane. They're laboratory mice. Their genes have been spliced. They're Pinky, they're Dinky, and the Brain, or something like that. Of course, that wasn't the melody. But Stephen then said, he heard the song, he saw the pictures, sold. So we had a show, and but Pinky and the Brain theme song, I think you all know that. And do you have that ready to go?
We can get the Pinky and the Brain theme song.
And then I'm going to hand it off to Mr. John McCann, who's going to regale you with hilarious stories.
Yes, indeed.
A little pressure.
That'll be fun.
So here's sing along, won't you? Yes.
Excuse me, what do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
Pinky and the Brain, yes, Pinky and the Brain. One is a genius, the other's insane. They're laboratory mice, their genes have been spliced. They're Pinky and the Brain, brain.
Thanks. By the way, we're going to do your questions, but each of these wonderful people is going to have a little chat with you. And here's John McCann.
Thank you. This reverb is tripping me out. You know, the delegate from Michigan pledges 5 votes. Well, one of the things I remember about Animaniacs, and it doesn't get a lot of talk, is that we were right next door to the Sherman Oaks Galleria. It was a mall, and they had a great arcade in there. And if you couldn't find Paul and I, we'd be down in the arcade playing the Terminator 2 game. Paul would just wax my ass. I don't think he went home at night. I think he was in the arcade, you know. I'm going to get McCann tomorrow. The kid from Nevada, you know. Anyway, it was, took our mind off work, but it was a lot of fun. It was learning to work with other people. I didn't know anything about animation. We'd come out of improv comedy. And, I saw artists would make mimeographs of, different scenes, and they'd study something, do something, and then they'd throw them away. So I'm there picking through the trash going, I wrote this, and they threw it away. I was a garbage picker making good money. I mean, it was difficult, but it was a lot of fun. You really the pressure we were under kind of brought us all together in a way, and we had to work under that and learn to deal with that. And so it was it was an interesting time, and everybody smoked, and it was like Las Vegas with cartoons. So, but it didn't hurt me in the least. Anyway, here is the man who beat me handily, Paul Rugg.
Thank you very much. No, we worked at a mall. We worked at the Sherman Oaks Galleria, and there were. Do you guys remember the episode, the survey ladies that were okay? That happened to us virtually every day. On our way from the 11th floor down to play video games, in which I did beat John quite a bit. We had to go through the survey lady. So, but a lot of things that happened in Animaniacs were things that happened to us down in that mall. And one of those things that happened was on the way down to the mall in the elevator, it stopped. And that's where Ups and Downs, the Animaniacs, where he's in the elevator with Goit Furman. Go! That comes from that. Yeah, that's. Am I supposed to say something else?
No, you're done.
Okay. Anyway, beating John McCann at games. Never mind.
Steve Bernstein, Julie Bernstein.
Hi, everybody.
Yay!
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we weren't at the mall with them.
No, we were at home most of the time. We were invited to the mall to discuss the music for the next upcoming scoring that we had to do, and we were both terrified. And what?
Well, we just had the best time, though, in
so
the
great.
studio recording with a live orchestra.
Which was that Steven's idea to do with an orchestra?
We were all with Tiny Toons, as you know. The verse came Tiny Toons, and we succeeded with that. So that's Steven said, "What's next?" And that was Animaniacs. He initially wanted it to be just like Looney Tunes, and so we went to the powers that be at Warner's and said, "We need a full orchestra," and they all said no. And then Steven said, "Excuse me?" And we had a lot of orchestra. Yeah.
Thank goodness.
It was a thrill to do that and to conduct these people who had the best time recording the music. They always came into the booth on the breaks to watch the cartoons that they just played on. But we were, Richard Stone was the supervising composer, and he brought us on not long after he started, I think.
And I happened to be answering the phone one day when he called to ask Steve a question. I don't know if you guys know this. He called to ask Steve a question about a chord that he couldn't figure out, and Steve wasn't home. And so I said, "Well, what chord are you looking for?" And he said, "I'm going to play a tape, and I will stop it right after that chord." And so he played it, and then he stopped the tape, and I said, "Oh, it's this." And I went to the piano, and I played it for him, and he was very excited. He said, "That's it, that's it." And the next time I saw him, which was at a Tasmania session that Steve was working on with him, he handed me a stamp. We used to write on the scores, it was written with pencil, and we would put a stamp in the corner that said composed by, orchestrated by, and he said, "I have something for you," and he handed me a stamp that said composed by Richard Stone, orchestrated by Julie Bernstein.
There you go.
That's how I got that job.
I didn't have a stamp. No, actually, I had a stamp. It had my name, and then I know Tim is here. Tim Kelly.
Tim Kelly.
Orchestrated for me for a long time, and then decided that he just needed to write music, and which is a good decision because he's terrific. So Tim, thank you for helping while you did. Yeah, he's here.
Hi, Tim.
And what?
That's enough. We've talked enough.
I can talk like a long time, but
Should we play? We should play some clips from the show, right?
do it.
Yeah. Paul, what's your favorite episode, Paul?
Probably Hearts of Twilight.
Let's go to that right now.
Now scoot.
Hoyle! How'd you with the going? You were there, but here now you are for me to see. How'd you do?
You understand any of that?
I think he said, Hoyle, how'd you with the going? You were there, but here now you are for me to see. How'd you do?
Thanks for clearing that up.
And that episode, of course, was written by Paul as well. So, Freund Levin.
Brian Laven!
Folks, I know there's a lot of folks out here that might have some wonderful questions for these folks out here. And do we have a microphone or anything like that might be able to tour around and get that? I can't see anything past the first or so row, but I know I saw some cordless mics perhaps in the back. Or is there a place to line up for questions? Or yes, they're waving. They're saying hi back there. Oh, hi, way back there. Yes, we have plenty of time for some questions. So anything you'd like to ask these wonderful folks, you can do so now. And if you, for whatever reason, don't get a chance to ask them your burning question, head on down to table EO1 and EO2 after this, because you can meet Paul and Tom, and even the Bernsteins are going to be down there as well. and John. So come on down and say hi. So anyway, with all that out of the way, let's go to our first question back there. I see a light in the back.
Oh, wow. Hello.
Hello. Is there going to be a third season of the new Animaniacs?
There is the third season that has started, right?
Yeah,
folks?
It's actually the third season.
It's out on Hulu.
It's been dropped, so it's there. Dropped in a good way, I mean.
But they didn't pick it up.
Yeah, unfortunately, there won't be a fourth.
All right.
Hey, settle down. Sorry, it comes out. Continue.
Yes.
Hi. I had a quick question about the character that we just saw on screen. Was there anything that inspired you guys to give him that really wacky voice that everyone laughed at?
No.
Yeah.
Yes. So, all right. So I was a big Jerry Lewis fan. I still am a big Jerry Lewis fan. And around the office, unfortunately, I would be like,
Oh, right, nice lady with the boys and everything.
and Tom is like, if we give you a part, would you stop that? So I was like, yeah, but not really. And so we did the first one, and there were two versions of Jerry Lewis back then. There was the
Oh, yeah, you with the nice man, go high.
And then there was the telethon Jerry, who felt it from the heart and could talk to you in an avuncular manner while using witticisms and chubimations.
and Tom was like, do a lot of that guy. So there you go. Have I answered your question? If not, sit down.
And he of course, he carried that on, and that became a part of who Freakazoid ultimately was.
Freakazoid became a lot of that. That's a whole different story. That's tomorrow.
There was also Hearts of Darkness, the documentary.
Yeah. So that was. So I remember. I'll be real quick. But I said, Tom, it'd be funny to do a parody of like Hearts of Darkness or Apocalypse Now, because the kids will love it. And Tom is like, yes, they will. Let's make it as complicated as possible. And I'm like, I'm there for that. So that was kind of the way we wrote Animaniacs back then. It was like, if we in the room were like, ha ha ha, then to heck with the kids. That's what we did.
I remember when we made a Pinky and the Brain episode called The Third Mouse, which was a parody of The Third Man, which is an Orson Welles movie made in like 1948 or something. And we finished it, and we sent it over to Spielberg, and he wrote back a memo and said, what are you guys doing?
It's like Meatballs and Consequences, because kids love The Seventh Seal.
Yes.
They can't get enough. Can't get enough of Bergman.
Very existential. I think they said, are we alive, or are we
in Ohio?
Are we in Ohio?
Yes. In fact, if we go to the feed right now, we can see a clip of this right here. So the Bergman-esque kind of moves.
All is strange and vague.
Are we dead?
Or is this Ohio?
Let's get another question.
Yes. Your guys' show is one of the funniest cartoon shows I've ever seen. I'm ranking it really high. A lot of the jokes, very sophisticated. So I'm just wondering, what were the comedic influences that it's in the DNA? There's some stuff I've watched and I'm like, hey, that kind of reminds me of Mel Brooks, or reminds me of an Airplane when I watch certain episodes. What were your comedic influences?
I think a lot of us felt at the beginning we were channeling some Marx Brothers material. Jean McCurdy, our boss, her husband once said to us, hey, I used to work in children's programming. Every year someone would come in, I've got the new Marx Brothers, and they never did. It was never very good. And you folks finally put the Marx Brothers in sort of cartoon form, and it's funny. So they were an influence. I mean, classic comedy was an influence, but these two fellows, John and Paul, they were brilliant comedians in their own right. They worked in improv. The first time I ever laid eyes on these two guys. They were on stage at an Acme Theater, and they had me rolling on the floor. They have a way of commanding comedy and an audience. And so I think they can tell you more about their comic backgrounds.
Well, Monty Python was a big one also. Particularly John Cleese, who showed up in another show that we'll talk about later. But yeah, Second City Television was another great influence. And some of the people outside the 7-Eleven near our theater.
Yeah, Mark's. When I was given my first script, which was Roll Over Beethoven, I worked with John. We were doing improv, and Tom had come to see the show and gave us both an individual script. And when he and Sherry Stoner mentioned they are, pretty much the Marx Brothers, that was an in immediately. And obviously over the years we've sort of morphed that, but Yakko was definitely Groucho, and the other two they were interchangeable. But Python definitely. We tried to do some Python stuff, but also I will just say the old. I don't know if you guys know who Jack Benny is, but the old. I thought we were really hip and we were good comedy writers until I listened to the Jack Benny radio show from the 40s, and it's some of the hippest, craziest, most wonderful stuff. So that sort of influence. Anyway, Stupid Julie Bernstein, everyone.
We had no input on the writing at all.
Yeah. No matter, we would send in stuff and they would go, no.
We also, John and I worked on something called Woodstock Slappy, and as you can tell, if you've seen some old Abbott and Costello movies, we were inspired by Who's on First, which is a clip from this.
Yeah, let's go and see if this works.
The group on stage! Oh! The band! No, the band is performing later. Right now we're listening to Who. That's what I want to know!
And it goes on and on and on.
Yes.
Oh, my turn? So, howdy, everyone. I am way after Animaniacs came out, so I was...
Oh, you're saying we're really old?
No,
Yeah.
no.
That's terrible of you.
Next question. No.
My question is, what was the animation industry like back then in the day?
Fun. Well, we had chisels.
We used to use coal and an ironing board. And if there was no photocopying, you'd have a guy come over and you'd smoke with him.
If you were late, they put dogs in the room with you.
That's right. If you don't get the script out, you're going to be mauled.
We did everything on paper. We drew on paper. We wrote the things on it. Well, we actually had computers, but we painted. There was all cell animation back then, and so it was really, compared to today's process, fairly primitive. I mean, they don't use the cells anymore. So there were people painting these cells. It was a lot of manual labor.
And the music. Remember, we were talking about how back in the 90s, there were no computers to put the music, to use a synthesizer and play it. So the first time that Paul, Tom, anybody, John, anybody would hear the music, even we would hear it in the orchestra, was at the live recording session, which is completely different than today.
And they were hearing it in their heads, but those were the only people that knew what it sounded like.
We did hear it in our heads, but nobody else, so nobody could either say it's not good or it's good. They would just have to come to the session and it would be there.
And by the way, the gravy of sort of after you write and you record and all the hard part is done, then if you were lucky, you got to go to these sessions on stage one, right? Or at Warner Brothers, which is where Carl Stalling made all the original stuff. And 40 people would be there, and then they'd be scoring your cartoon. It was insane. And these people would all come in, they'd be like, hi, Phil, hi, Mary, how are you, how are you, how are you? And then Steve would go like this, or Julie would go like this, and everyone would go, and it would be like, wow! It was amazing.
The sound was enormous.
I'm sorry, we were just as amazed, I just got to say, that these people can actually do that after a take. After one go through, they would do that, and it was amazing.
Was the piano the same one that Carl Stalling used?
I think at first, yeah.
And it was the same piano that was used on all those early films.
They
all the
recorded
classics.
Casablanca in that studio.
Yeah. I don't think they did as many glissandos down the piano, though.
Yeah.
There weren't as many anvils falling.
Yeah.
In Casablanca.
They never had a theremin in Casablanca.
Yeah.
They should have.
Yeah,
we had way more Xylo, I believe, right?
Yeah. Oh, the Xylo. That was a really, our Xylo player was playing. You have no idea how fast he could play. Just.
Well, we gave him the violin part, and we said, here, play this. And he said, okay.
Wow. Quite phenomenal.
A lot of notes in not much time.
Fabulous.
Yeah, so whenever I'm writing a sketch, most of the time I have an idea for who I want to cast. When you were in the process of writing the show, did you guys write your characters with Rob, Jess, and Tress in mind, or were they already signed to work on the show to begin with?
We were trying to write them out of it. No, we auditioned everybody in town. Rob was tremendously, we loved him from his work on Tiny Toons. He had, what really super impressed me about his work on Tiny Toons was when Babs and Buster went downriver in what I did on my vacation, and they met these possums. And Rob, Charlie Adler didn't do the twanging that Buster did with his mouth. Rob Paulson did it, and he did it with, he could cover all these different octaves. It was amazing. So we thought, well, that guy can really sing. So we wanted to put a lot of songs in Animaniacs because that was the only way we would ever get royalties.
Yeah. Thank you very much, by the way.
We needed to get, we wanted to get really great singers. So Rob, Jess, and Tress were particularly good singers. So Rob, we definitely pushed him. When we sent a bunch of auditions to Steven, we put like 3 of Rob in there, but he didn't know. And Tress, I think we pretty much knew we wanted Tress from the beginning. And then Jess came in. He was the last audition on the last day, and we were at our wits' end. I think everyone was coming in. His name was Yakko, and everyone was doing like, "Hello, I'm Yakko. Yakko, yeah." And every audition was like that, and it was like, "Oh my gosh, we're dead. We're dead in the water."
This isn't bonkers.
So we started reading names out of the almanac, celebrity names, and we got to the Beatles, and we said, "Do you do any Beatles?" And he says, "Which one?" And he did all of them. And we thought the Ringo was particularly strong, and that's the one we sent in, and that's the one that won. Casting Paul Rugg was more difficult, right?
Very difficult to work with.
So when we write for these characters, well, you guys, when you're writing for a particular character, I know you love writing for Yakko.
Yeah, I like. But what's funny is when we first started, we didn't have Rob, Jess, and Tress. We were just sort of going off of that Marx Brothers vibe. Once they were cast and we started hearing it, then we definitely started writing for Rob and writing for, within knowing what they could do and how Tress would sort of do a little thing. We definitely, I did anyway. I don't know if you did, John.
Right, but also with celebrities, we got to work with like Jeff Bennett or Corey Burton, that their range was just amazing. And the number of people that they could imitate was just fantastic.
Yeah.
So we would draw on that and try and use them as
I just want to say that every time I left a vocal session, I would probably, for the next 2 hours, rant in a good way about how the people in that session are geniuses. They're geniuses. I just couldn't believe how many different characters they could do.
Well, Julie and Steve, Paul, John, and I, and a few others, we would write lyrics, but we had no idea what they were going to do musically. So Steve and Julie and Richard would do all the melodies for these songs that we just thought, well, good luck with them. And so they orchestrated and composed these songs, but also they knew the ranges for each actor, right?
Which wasn't always easy because Rob, Tress, and Jess have very different ranges. It was always sort of a puzzle to put it in
now,
the
what
right
did you
range.
do when Bernadette Peters was coming in to do a song? What was that?
When?
Bernadette Peters.
Oh, she was the character of Rita.
Yes.
And yes, I didn't have any trouble writing for her range. That was fun. Yeah.
She could just hit any note you gave her, pretty much. Right?
Yeah, and an amazing voice.
As opposed to Slappy Squirrel, you gave her a song, she wanted to kill you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, working with the actors, working vocally with the actors was just one of the most fun things ever.
Julie got to go to those parties too. I never got to go to those parties, but.
Speaking of songs, I think it's time we as a crowd do another sing along. Now, many of you are familiar with Yakko's World, of course, but I think many of you, of course, know the most educational song is truly Lake Titicaca.
Yeah.
Written by Tom over here. So if you like, I have on the screen, if we can get this up, the Lake Titicaca theme. So very, very educational. Here we go.
Sing along.
Sing along if you know the words.
Lake Titicaca, oh Lake Titicaca, it's between Bolivia and Peru. Yes, Lake Titicaca, 'cause we really like saying its name, Titicaca.
Titicaca. All right, we got another question.
Yeah, hi. A few years ago, I got to meet Rob Paulson and Randy Rogel, and they told a story about how when they went to record Yakko's World, Rob did it all in the first take. I was wondering, were any of you in the room for that, and what was it like to be able to, were there any other interesting stories when recording the songs with Rob, Jess, and Tress?
You should tell the thing from Wacko's Wish about pointing to the people.
Oh, I almost threw my arm out because in Wacko's Wish, there's a song. What is it? Tchaikovsky? No.
A Liszt, I think.
Liszt, yeah. It's the Hungarian Rhapsody is the music. And
wishing,
I was, at one point in the song, it goes, wishing, 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 wishing. And I was pointing to all the actors were sitting in the room, and I was pointing to them at which point to sing. And Frank Welker, who's an amazing, amazing voice actor, he was the voice of Runt and so many other people. And I just remember, and he was so worried he was sitting there just waiting for his time, and I was trying to prepare him. And I remember I threw my arm out just going, now! Anyway, yeah.
But he made it.
He did it.
Rob finished the first time we recorded Nations of the World with Rob. He did get through the whole song. He did a great job, but there were a few spots in it where he had to catch his breath. We didn't want him catching his breath in the middle of the song. So we did 3 takes that day, and we did cut in a couple sections from other takes. So, but he clearly prepared the heck out of that song. He was ready for it.
All right. Next.
So this is more of a Freakazoid question. What was your inspiration behind it, and will we ever get a new season?
I have to tell you tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Come back tomorrow.
I'm sorry. Legally, I've signed an NDA, and we have to talk about this tomorrow.
1 o'clock.
Are you available tomorrow?
Can you come tomorrow? Otherwise, we'll do it outside in the hallway.
1 o'clock tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't care.
See you there.
Is this on?
Yes, it is.
All right, so I just felt like asking, out of the many musical numbers featured in Animaniacs, what are some of your favorites?
Oh, I have one. and I think it's going to be performed right now, is it not?
What is it?
One.
What is it?
You know what.
Oh, you want me to do that one?
Yeah. Here's my favorite.
When the whippoorwill whippers in the wind can't whip it back. Oh, nice and chubby, baby.
That one? Yeah. You know, look, Yakko's world is great. You know, all the countries of the world are fine, but I think that Tom's right. That's the best song ever written. I'm just gonna say it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Julie wrote the music for it. Is that the one you wanted?
Yeah, I love that. And John, you wrote "You and Me." I love that. "You and Me" down at the UN.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Magellan.
Ballad of
Ballad of Magellan.
I love Ballad
There
of Magellan.
once was a man. That's mostly John McCann. John McCann. By the way, John McCann would always come in with the line, like whenever someone like, "Oh man, I love Animaniacs, I love Freakazoid," and they go this line, it's always one that John wrote. Always.
That's for the video games, buddy.
John also wrote the first half hour of Pinky and the Brain. The first, and it was in the Animaniacs series. It was called Spellbound, and it was packed with strange, bizarre little tunes that Pinky would sing and annoy the living daylights out of Brain. Yeah.
So the first time Rob used the word fjord, I think. Was,
How about you guys? Favorite song?
Julie worked on the songs. I never got to make people sing, really. I did the footsteps and the running and the tornadoes and all the episodes without dialogue were the ones that were assigned to me. So basically they were symphonies that I had to come up with every 2 weeks.
It was amazing.
And
but,
the one musical moment that stands out is the piano rag, because they animated the pianist before they got to me. And so these hands are going everywhere, and it was up to me to make it make sense.
And he did it. He did it. It's really incredible. Oh, here it is.
Amazing.
That was awesome.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's not normally done in that order. So, but you know, I just wanted to say, writing. So the writers were writing parodies. They really enjoyed loving fun of Disney musicals and any other musical that ever existed. And like Tom was saying before, they would write the lyrics, and then we would write a parody to whatever that musical was. But the hard thing is that the musical as it is, probably the composer chose the best notes, the ones that work. And so making a parody, making a sound alike, that's still good. That was the challenge, but it was a lot of fun.
And without getting sued. I mean, that was key.
No, that was the main thing, always in the back of the mind. Okay, you can't, only one note can be the same, but if 2 notes or 3 notes are the same, we're going to get sued.
Yeah.
Deanna Oliver wrote I think my favorite Rita and Runt cartoon, which was Les Miserables. And a lot of notes. And the weird thing about that one is Deanna never saw Les Mis in her life. So she's very talented, yeah.
Let's go for another question.
Hi, so like during the early times when you were coming up with the show, like before it became the show we know and love today, you originally had the idea that there was going to be 4 Warners. So during that time, did you have any ideas on how the show would have been like when you had the 4th Warner in mind?
They were just going to visit him in the hospital. I think.
Never knew this.
Was that the plan? He was called Smacky, or was that right? Or
Smacko or something.
Smacko. Yeah. And yeah, we had 4, and they yeah. But honestly, the more characters you have, the more difficult it is. I mean, these 3 guys, and Dot and Yakko, they work beautifully as a trio, and the fourth one, Zeppo in the Marx Brothers never really did much. And so we felt that the fourth character would be a weight on them.
Okay, thank you.
Legit.
Let's go.
He passed away before we came along.
All right, next question.
So my favorite line from the show is "Hello, Nurse." I was wondering what your guys' was.
Favorite character?
Favorite character.
No, line.
Favorite line. Oh, was "Hello, Nurse." That was her favorite line. Do you have a favorite quote line?
Let's see.
All
right. Good night, everybody.
Yeah.
I do like that. Anybody?
I can't recall any line.
I'm sorry, from what show? No, I'm sorry. Here's the problem is like, we like all of them. That's a cheap way of getting out of the question.
I mean, in terms of catchphrases, I think "Fabu" was one of my favorite words.
Yes.
Nah.
No?
Okay.
Fabu.
All right.
Call me Dottie and you die.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
Princess Louisa Contessa.
Louisa
Banana.
Princess, Banana Fanabobeska.
Are you pondering what I'm pondering?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Thank you, John. Yes.
Thank you.
All right, Scarlet Witch is next.
Grab that.
So I just want to say thank you for making my childhood. I love it so much, the show. It's one of my favorite things. Do you guys have a favorite side character, like anyone besides the Warners?
Yes.
Excellent question.
Yes. Well, do we count Pinky and the Brain as side characters? I feel like Pinky Brain, Yakko, Wacko, and Dot are our current leads.
Yeah.
And then I'll vote for Slappy anytime. I love Slappy.
I had a soft spot for Runt and Ralph the Guard. I don't know what that says about me, but
Says a lot.
Johan?
Well, I liked Rita and Runt because, like you mentioned, that meant mailbox money.
Songs. There was
Songs.
a song.
A lot of songs.
And I'm a personal fondness for Scratch and Sniff, just because he was so good to work off of the three of them.
Thank you.
Hi. My question is, how long have you guys been making animations?
Ooh.
I started. The chisel thing. I worked at Hanna-Barbera before any of you were born, and I worked on Yogi's Treasure Hunt back then. The first thing I ever animated was I worked as an animator at first, and I animated Godzilla on the Godzilla Power Hour with Godzuki. With Godzuki. And then I quit. No. So then I worked at Filmation. I worked on something called Black Star, and so I was back. I don't like to date myself, but in the '80s, and I went to Hanna-Barbera and worked on a pup named Scooby-Doo. Scooby-Doo. And so that's what got me the gig to work with Mr. Spielberg, because that had a lot of Tex Avery type, semi-Tex Avery, Warner Brothers type gags. And so he saw that and appreciated that I at least could speak the same language as he was speaking. And so that's my sort of cartoon backstory.
All right. John, how'd you get going?
Well, I had written a Disney show that had come up. They were envious of Tiny Toons at the time, and they decided to do something like Disney, and that'd be like trying to come up with a funny joke in front of 15 suits. Say, what does that mean? Can we be sued? I don't know. Say, what does that mean? So it left me with a bad taste in my mouth, and they were cheap too for all that. But mostly we were Paul and I was doing stand-up originally, and then Paul and I hooked up, and we started. We were in some of the same groups, crossing paths, and then we Acme Comedy Theater. We started working together for a couple of years. So that was a lot of fun. There were no suits, but there was no money either. So.
Sherry Stoner, our story editor, her husband ran the Acme Theater, and Sherry Stoner would come in now and then and say, you know what, you got to come to our theater because there are a couple of guys there that are just funny. And she was right. It was these two fellows. Yeah.
Nope.
Are we seeing something? Oh, anyway. I started working in animation, I guess, with Tiny Toons. I was orchestrating for Fred Steiner, who did a bunch of Tiny Toons. And so I started, and then he let me...
Fred Steiner of
Perry Mason, of a lot of the old Star Trek library.
Yeah.
So I worked with him, and then he started letting me write a few cues, and I got...
You cleaned the leaves out of his gutter.
Yeah, I did. I alphabetized his record collection.
Yeah. These are things that you have to do on the way to becoming...
Those are dues, yeah. So
look up
that was
Fred
a lot-
Steiner
was a lot
on your
there.
Google. He's really a big name. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
Hey, everyone. Props to being speaking of musical stuff, props to being the only children's cartoon I've ever seen to have the guts to do a spoof of Rocky Horror Picture Show. I guess this question is to Mr. Ruegger. For as goofball as the show was, this was a tremendous source of great teaching songs. I mean, really serious, show them to your school kids teaching songs. If you ever forget what capital is what for what state, there it is. So what was your inspiration? What made you decide, yeah, I want this to be part of the show?
We had a deadline, and someone had written something that we could use. It was really... Randy Rogel wrote the country song and the state song, and he wrote them for his own child, I think a couple of years before Animaniacs existed. And so he came in, and he would come in and play the piano, and he was very peppy, and we said, well, that would be great for our show, since we're on a deadline and we're behind. And of course, Rob and Jess. So Rob did the first one, and Jess literally, he came up and said, where's my song, man? Dude, I need a song like Rob. So we made sure Rob didn't get the state song, and we gave it to Jess.
Well, thank you so much. That unfortunately was our last question right there.
No.
But... if you folks out there, and I know there's a lot of people who have lots of questions and want to meet these wonderful people, come on down to Hall C, tables E01 and E02. We'll get all these people right here. They'll love to say hi to you, each and every one of you. Come on down. Let's all go down together. And let's give a big hand for all of our panelists for being here. And thank you so much, WonderCon.
Thanks.